Hello folks, so welcome back to the C Morning Show right here on C Today. Now, the Indonesian Manpower Ministry has recently announced a new minimum wage set to go into effect next year. The announcement have done little to put the perennial debate surrounding the minimum wage to rest.
Indeed, we've been seeing many protests online in regards to this, and some have argued that the new minimum is still inadequate to meet the real needs of workers. And while the calculation of the minimum wage, once tied to the decent living standards, which was perceived as an ideal approach, has now deviated from its original intent.
So joining us today in the morning, Gajimo External Project Officer Muhammad Fakhri to talk more in details about the gap toward livable wage standard. Good morning, Mas Fakhri. Thank you so much for being here with us to kind of enlighten us in this, very sensitive subject as of right now. Now, before delving into the intricacies of minimum wage, let's first examine the broader landscape of wage realities in Indonesia. What findings have you met in regards to this situation?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Before we delve deep into the wage realities, I would like to talk about first our minimum wage regulation here in Indonesia.
Yes,
so we don't have a national minimum wage. We have provincial minimum wages and also district minimum wages.
Okay.
And minimum wages is according to the law number 2003. Minimum wages is only for workers with less than a year of work experience.
Okay.
For those who have a family and have more than 1 year of experience, their wages should be based on the wage structure and scale. So it depends on their title, their level of work, and etc.
Okay.
And sadly, in reality, only 19%, according to the Manpower Ministry law data, only 19% of company have wage structure and scale. So most workers in Indonesia only base their wages only on minimum wages.
Okay. Even though they've worked more than a year.
Exactly.
So if they have no structure within the company, they can just follow the minimum wage that's set in that province or that area.
Exactly. So yeah, that's why every year we see a lot of strikes and protests from the trade unions because they heavily rely on the minimum wages because there is no the wage structure and scale.
Right.
Okay.
And now we talk about the data that we have collected from the Gajimo survey. So every year we collected the minimum wages in database. So we start with 2000 so we made from the 2017. As you can see, before 2020, the range and average minimum increase little higher than the past few years.
Okay.
That is because the formula of wage calculations.
Which is, how does it usually work?
So yeah, before the 2020, there is an omnibus law.
Yes.
So before that, we used the National Labor Law 2003, which clearly stated that the formula or calculation of minimum wage should be based on the decent standard of living.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Makes sense.
And because the omnibus law came into effect and its derivative regulations, that article have been revoked. So there is no, we don't really have that standard of living survey, which carry out every 5 years. We check on the market, what is the price of egg, what is the price of rice, and etc.
So you're doing it manual now.
So we don't have this.
We don't have that. We don't take that into account right now. And yeah, as you can see, after the omnibus law came into effect, and also we got COVID-19, so you can see, and in 2021 and 2022, the average minimum increase is only about 1% and 1.5%. And after that, we saw post-COVID era, and still we get lower minimum wage increase because of the effect of the omnibus law. And now it has worsened because of the new minimum wage regulations that also have a new variable called the alpha variable.
And that is?
The alpha variable ranging from 0.1 to 0.3 rate. Okay. So, because of this regulation, we saw that the result of the minimum wage only range from 1% to 7%, and the average minimum increase is only about 3%.
Okay, so now we're seeing that the government has recently adjusted the 2024 minimum wage. Different regions have had different adjustments. Now, you mentioned some of the factors. What are some of the main factors behind this? I mean, the omnibus law, is it COVID? Because cost of living continues to go up. I mean, you cannot deny that. It's not so you can't suddenly say, oh, it's a little bit cheaper now to live these days. It's always constantly going up. So yes. How has this been, why has this been such a discrepancy?
Yes, it's because there are several factors that are relevant to the setting up minimum wages, which is productivity, the economic growth, inflations, and now we have before we have decent of standard living standard, and now that we don't have that really anymore, and also the wage adjustment from the new regulations.
Okay, so these are all the factors that are now combining to make this
exactly
a bit of an issue. Okay.
Right, and you've also mentioned the constants of changes to the calculations have led questions about the stability about the systems, right? And there are some laws that's revoked, or there are some, there are some articles that revoke. Is there a lack of definitive mechanism regulating wage calculation, and what factors contribute to the annual of the alterations?
Yeah, I would like to explain what is the dynamic between the minimum wage calculation first. So, other than the relevant factor that economic growth, inflation, and blah blah blah, so we have these industrialization conditions, which make our labor market like dualistic labor market, which is informal and formal workers. So, the formal workers get minimum wages, but the informal workers didn't have to get minimum wages.
Okay. What is this? Are these like workers that are not officially working for the company?
There's like the small, medium enterprises.
Right.
Oh, got it.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, because of the wage gap between regions, there is like worker migrations.
We
want to seek for more decent wages, and also industry. Also, there is a relocation of factories.
Yeah, they're moving to areas where they have to pay less to their
exactly.
Okay.
So this happened.
Okay, and then this can cause more instability, won't it? Because I mean, if I own a factory and I have a chance to cut down like 20% of my salary wages because I have 1,000 people working for me, it would be cheaper for me to relocate my entire factory to a place where I can pay all of my factory workers 20% less, for example, and that would save me a lot of money over a longer term. But what risk does this create? Because obviously we do know that some factories have already done this as well, some companies have done this. What does that do to our economy as a whole nationally? I mean, it does create a bit of an imbalance, doesn't it, in the other areas?
Yes. In short term, we created more and more workers in precarious situations.
Okay.
Because of that.
People losing their jobs.
People losing their job because of the relocation of factories.
Yeah.
And also, in terms of minimum wages, we see race to the bottom. Because for making the less and less minimum wages, it attracts more industry into the regions also.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then because of the inflation also, that it's getting much more harder for now people to like choose for a better wage work, right? They'll just look for any kind of work as long as that I'm still being active.
Okay.
Yeah. And back to the standard of wage calculations, I think to this day there's no like universal one single formula to calculate decent wages. So we are not the only one who want to calculate living wages.
Yeah.
There are other initiatives that do this also. For example, we have Fair Praise from the Fairware Foundations that calculate living wages based on the values of the workers.
Okay.
How much work they put into.
Like their productivity and how much that they can contribute to the revenues of the company.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, for us, living wage is based on the regional, and we assume that the wages is not only for individual, it's for their families.
Of course.
So we assume living wages based on 2 adults and 2 children. One adult working full-time.
Yes.
40 hours a week.
Okay. So those, well, that's pretty average if you really think about it. Now, do you have, I mean, is there any, we already know that there's no data now that we can rely on when it comes to decent standards of living, but do we have any established methods for illustrating for like the allocations of salaries, providing a guide from both sides, basically not just for the employer and employee? And for that, I'm going to refer to, we've got a setup for Gajimu here, I believe. So perhaps we could get Mas Fakhri to help us out here.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is the visualization in our website, gajimu.com.
Okay.
So as we can see here, we have the data from the gap or the comparison between minimum wages and also the living wages in Indonesia 2022. Because the 2023 we don't have that data. We're still collecting the data now.
Okay. So these are, for example, I mean, for our non-Indonesian speaking viewers, this would be a breakdown of the allocation for your expenses for a month of your salary. For example, makanan would be food, rumah would be housing, pendidikan, education, pakaian, clothes, health, transportation, water, and then other sorts like taxes and paying your phones and things of that sort. And there you see the percentage breakdown. I'm surprised food takes up that much, by the way.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
We have
breakfast. This is about how much I spend on food. Yeah.
This is the living category. We call it living category that we ask the respondent from our survey.
Okay.
So we can type our wages, for example, 3 million rupiah, and it will say that if you type that and it stated that your wage right now is above the minimum wages, but
it's still
under the living wages.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So by typing this in and by typing what region you're working in, it will actually tell you where you place.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the allocation.
Good to know. Good to know.
So this is the gap between the minimum wages and living wages. As you can see, there is minus 40%.
Okay.
This is the result of the gap between minimum wages and also living wages. So this is the average minimum wages of 2022.
That's right.
And this is the average minimum living wages of 2022. There is a gap between 1 million rupiah.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I mean, where are you going to get an extra per month, right?
That's right. And then you also have, you know, a comparison with Malaysia.
Malaysia. So they have living wages that is above the minimum wages.
And it's a similar gap if you look at the number. It's about $1 million rupiah, but you are making more. I mean, it's a smaller percentage gap if you think about it, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Zero comparison.
Yep, this is the allocation of living category.
This is really good information for me tonight. I've never known like this sort of information before. I've always been curious as to how we break down our living expenses per month.
Yes.
Okay. Now this one's interesting because it breaks down the different areas of Indonesia, and this has been the area of concern lately, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
could you explain it a little bit?
Yes, I explained before. We calculate living wages based on region in provincial level. So as you can see, almost all of our region here. Sorry. Yep. The living wage still. We didn't meet the living wage because the minimum wage is still low.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's look at Jakarta. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Can you look at the trend for Jakarta there? If you go back up a little bit.
Yep.
You know, DKI Jakarta is the only region so far that I see where the minimum wage actually does cover your living expenses.
Living wage,
right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, explains why so many people want to work here.
But if you look at into the Central Java, the gap is
like half. Less than half.
Less than half.
Oh, wow.
And also in Yogyakarta. So this is also because of the industrialization. The Central Java is new industrial area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
they're more cultured, right?
Yeah. They started industry just lately.
Yes.
So they've been pushing that salary down so that they can get more work.
Exactly. That's why the all industrial areas, for example, in Banten, we have higher minimum wages. But it relocates factories to the central Java.
Just to push that wage down again.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
Gotcha.
Well, we can see really, Paul, the disparity between regions here.
Yeah,
really
so we can compare two regions here.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, let's do that. For example, Banten, and we want to compare with the Central Java.
Jawa Tengah, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so you can see here the result of the living wages. Even we thought that we often assume that the Central Java has lower decent standard of living. But as you can see, living wages in Central Java slightly higher than the Banten.
That's right.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the minimum wages is much lower.
So it's a bigger discrepancy then.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the data that we often found in our database.
Okay, so this is very helpful, by the way, in case you guys want to know more, and you can actually flip this to an English version as well at gajimu.com in case you want to figure out more of these data comparisons as well.
Yep.
That's right. Now, and of course, in light of the apparent disparity between regions and minimum wage, as we were seeing right now and present, what recommendation can be put in effort or forth to align wage determination most closely with the local standards of livelihood?
How can we bridge this gap, basically?
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully, by promoting this data, the living wages, we want government to implement the decent standard of living again to the calculation of minimum wages, because that the only way we want to create a decent work for everyone.
Yeah.
And then we also want to enforce the wage structure and scale implementation for workers that has more experience, for 1 year more experience, and also having a family.
Yeah. And definitely with this, I think it also educate the workers or the people to understand, because some people, especially living in the rural areas, they just, they just condone themselves. They just thought that as long as I have work, as long as I can put the food on the table, I'll just do it. Yes.
Yeah.
But with this, they have like proof and data what their, what they should have, their value.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So looking ahead here, I know elections are coming up. What do you foresee happening? I mean, this is all a guess for any of us at this point, but you are more in the know in regards to the data. Do you see changes being made in the near future to kind of rectify this situation?
I think also depend on the situation because for the past for the past few years we didn't see really the changes. It's not made to make a better living, but it worsened the situations.
Right. Correct.
I don't think there is much guarantee that the next year, even though we have election, we will get better conditions to this day.
I mean, it's going to be a part of their campaign from, anyone, right? Yes, but how can we make that into an effect?
Right. And I think, I guess from our perspective, we as voters need to kind of make it known and voice our concerns that this is an issue that we want our future president or regional leaders to be able to handle.
Yes, exactly. Right? So, as in our perspective, we think that the collective movement of trade union is the key to promote decent work in Indonesia, because we cannot just provided and given by the government. Government will not do that. So we try to push them by the collective movement, the collective bargaining power by the trade unions.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose of unions to begin with, right? It's trying to stand up for all the workers that don't have a voice themselves. Mas Fakhri, thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much.
And if you guys want to find out more, please do. I mean, I'm going to look more into this. We didn't have time to delve into all of the details, but it is at gajimu.com, so you guys are more in the know in regards to the labor situation here in Indonesia.
All right, thank you very much, Mas Fakhri and Paul. We're going for a break right now, but you can continue to connect with us on our social media at See Today News. We're on Instagram, X, and also YouTube. We'll be right back for more.
Thank you.
Thank you.